This is the tutorial for 2.3.2.4 review, and we're going to do some reflections and rotations, and even some translations. So we're going to start by plotting these points, so -1, -2, and we'll just put the letter that corresponds to. -4, and we go down 2, and that is B, and then C is -3, -4. And so what they want us to do is plot these points, but then rotate and reflect. And so let me fix one thing right now. It looks like C is a little bit too close. It looks like it is 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we have it. So now we'll go ahead and sketch in what the original figure looked like. And from there, we'll go ahead and reflect or rotate, whichever one they have us do first. It looks like we're going to rotate counterclockwise about the origin. So that's when you can actually turn the paper and figure out where it goes. Now, if I'm going to end up going counterclockwise, I wouldn't want to go in this direction. Going to the second quadrant would be clockwise. I want to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to bring this image, and it's going to end up going in this direction. So if I look at A is this line right here. This negative y-axis is going to become the x-axis, and so it is one space from this line. So it's going to be one space from that line. And when I go ahead and rotate it counterclockwise about the origin, that's going to be A prime right there. B prime is going to end up being right below it, and so it's going to end up going right here. And then I'm going to have C prime, and it is going to be in between, closer to B, and it's going to be right there. So again, you can take your page and actually physically rotate it and see that's where the image would end up occurring. But from that point, now we're going to take that image and we're going to reflect across the y-axis. So I'll change colors here, and I count the spaces to the y-axis. And so A prime is 2 spaces from the y-axis, so 2 spaces on the other side. And that's where it's going to end up being. B is the same thing, 2 spaces from the y-axis, 2 spaces on the other side. C is 4 spaces from the y-axis, so 4 spaces on the other side. And that is the image after it's been rotated counterclockwise, then reflected across the y-axis. So another one here is this one, number 2. It says plot -3, 2. So 3 to the left and then up 2 spaces. That puts me right there's A. B is -3 and -2. So that put me right there. And C is -1 and then down 2 spaces. So that's going to end up being right there. So from there, I'll go ahead and draw on what I've got. And it looks like a right triangle. And it says to rotate clockwise 90 degrees. So clockwise is going to bring this axis up to this location right here. So that's clockwise 90 degrees. So A is going to be in the first quadrant. These two are going to end up being in the second quadrant. So when I go ahead and do that, if I look at this axis here, B is 2 spaces from it. And so it's going to be 2 spaces from that axis when I go ahead and rotate it. It's going to be out in here in some spot, so I need to find out how far up from this axis it's going to be. So I count the spaces. 1, 2, 3 spaces up from this axis. Again, this negative y is going to rotate up to become the negative x. So 3 spaces from this, but 2 spaces from the new y-axis. So that's where B is going to end up going. C is going to be 1 space from this axis, which will end up being here, and then 2 spaces from this axis. So that's where that goes. And A is right out from B. So it's straight out from B, so it's going to end up going out here. And it's 2 spaces from this axis, so it's going to go 2 spaces in that direction. So there is A prime, so I'll go ahead and draw that in there. And from there, it says to reflect across the x-axis. So we count the spaces to the x-axis, and it looks like A is 3 spaces, so it's just going to go 3 spaces on the other side. So that put us right there. That's A double prime. B, same thing. It's 3 spaces from the x-axis, so just 3 spaces on the other side. And C is just 1 space from the x-axis, so 1 space on the other side. And so we'll go ahead and draw those points in there. And that's what we should end up seeing. So the one in red is the final image. Now we've got some other parts here where it says we are trying to find or reflect this triangle across the y-axis. And so when I do that, I did this one because I had points on both sides. So when I have that situation, I just count the spaces to the x-axis, or the y-axis in this case, and just go on the other side, that number of spaces. So z is on the right side of it, so it's going to reflect to the left side. So it's 3 spaces from the y-axis, so 3 spaces on the other side. Y is only 1 space, so just 1 space on the other side. So then it says, take that image, and I'm just going to dash this in so it's not so dark here. And it says to translate 3 right, 2 down. So 3 right, so 1, 2, 3, and then 2 down, puts me right there. And I'm going to change the color so we can see that a little bit better. And so this becomes x double prime. And then it says to go the same thing for all of them, so 3 right and 2 down, puts me right there for z double prime, and y 3 right and 2 down, puts me right there, so that is y double prime. So I'll go ahead and sketch in my figure and fill in the rest. So it asks for the ordered pairs for x, y, and z double prime. So x is 4 spaces right and 1 space down. Y is 2 spaces right and 2 spaces up. And z is just at the origin. And so now they want us to write a rule. The rule tells me how is xy changing. Xy is the original, the one in black. Well, first thing I did is I made the one in blue. That was when I reflected. Now I reflected across the y-axis, so the x value switched sign, the y value stayed the same. And then I did the transformation. Transformation said 3 right, so I took the x value, whichever one it is here, and I just added 3 to it. I took the y value down 2, and I wrote y minus 2. And that was it. That's my rule. So we'll try another one like that. DEF. Now I didn't, let's just call this ABC. I didn't write DEF on these letters here, so we'll go ahead and reflect that across the x-axis. So here's C prime, A prime, and B prime would go down here. So we reflect across the y-axis, or x-axis, sorry. And now we're going to follow the rule. It says translate 2 left, so 2 left, and then 4 up. So I'll change color here. So 2 left, 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4 puts me way up at the top for C double prime, and A double prime, 2 left, and 3 or 4 up puts me right at the top. There's A double prime. And B, 2 left and 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4. B double prime. Alright, so once I have that, I can go ahead and do the same thing I did before. I can name the points A, B, C. And so it looks like A is 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 units left, and 5 units up. B is 1 unit left and 3 units up, and C looks to be 0 units left or right and 5 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. So now they say write the rule. So we just follow what it says. We started with x and y, but then since I reflected over the x-axis this time, the y value switched sign. So it becomes x comma negative y. Then the translation said to take the x value and go left. So x minus 2. And then y value says up 4. So y plus 4. And that was it. So let's take a look at the next problem, and it was last 2. It said describe the sequence that's going on. And so they already have the picture for me, so all I have to do is figure out how they changed it. Well, first thing I always look for is a rotation. And I do see a rotation here. I see that T is going, it's kind of pointing towards the right if I look at where T is the point. Here it's just going straight up and down. So I'm going to do a rotation first. So when I rotate, it doesn't matter which way you rotate, you'll get the same answer eventually. It's just the sequence will be a little bit different. So I'm going to rotate counterclockwise. I'm going to end up taking this negative x and I'm going to bring it down in this location. I'm going to take the y, the positive y, and bring it down to the negative x. And so if I look at that, see how T is right to the right of the y-axis. Well, when it goes to the negative x-axis, it's going to be right above. T is going to end up being right here. So that's going to be the new t value. And then I'm going to look at r. r is right above this line. So when I rotate this down, it's going to be right to the left. So it's going to end up going right here. That's going to be r prime. And then s, see, it's right above r here, but when I go ahead and rotate this down, it's going to be to the left. So it's going to be off in this direction. Looks like it's 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3 from r. 1, 2, 3. So that's it. So this is the rotation. Okay, so now I'll write down what I did. I rotated clockwise, or actually counterclockwise, 90 degrees. So I have to tell which way I rotated, direction and degrees. Now I need to, now if you look at it, r, you see r is 1 space to the left or to the right of t. You see how r is 1 space to the right? So I need to reflect this. I need to reflect this image to the other side so I can get r to the other side, to the left-hand side of this. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect across the y-axis. And that'll get it lined up correctly. So r is on the left side of the triangle and s is on the right side. So when I do that, I just count the spaces. So I'll change color. And it looks like 2 spaces over. So it's going to be r, or actually that's a t now. So let me change that. So t, and this is double prime here. And then r will go right here. And s is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I've got the image so it's lined up correctly. So what I did is I reflect. Oops, I already said what I did there. So I'll go ahead and take that out there. So I reflected across the y-axis. Now I need to translate. So I need to translate. I'll change the color once more here. Translate, it looks like 1 down, 1 left. So I'm going to say left, 1, down, 1. So left 1, down 1 gets me right onto that. You see how if I do that, it'll put me right at where I need to be. And so that was the rotation for that. If we had done it the other way, if I rotated this clockwise, I would have exactly the opposite. I would end up having rotate clockwise 90 degrees, and then I'd end up having to reflect over the x-axis because it would end up being over this side, and then I'd have to flip it over to get t so it's on top rather than the bottom. So another way, so you could do it, or rotate clockwise 90 degrees and then reflect over the x-axis. And once you do that, then you'll end up in the same spot. And then you just translate 1 down, and 1 left. Let's take a look at the last one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to rotate. This time I'll rotate it clockwise. So I'm going to move this one in this location, and this axis is going to end up moving up. So if I look at it with respect to the y-axis, it's going to be down here on the x. So you see how A prime, oh, this is what I'm going to. So let's go ahead and flip this around here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this image here, and I'm going to bring it over here, and this one is going to go up this way. So I go ahead and go clockwise this time. So I'm going from A to A prime. So A is here above the x, so when I go ahead and rotate it, it's going to end up being out in this location right here. That's going to be A prime, because it just rotates down, and see x is here. It's going to end up rotating down over here, and see when it was prior to it being rotated, this would have been the x-axis. And so these 2 points are going to go in the third quadrant. So if we look at this, this axis goes up. And so when I go ahead and take a look at it, it's going to be 1 space from this axis. So it goes here, where C is 3 spaces down, so it ends up going right there. So this is C prime and B prime. So when I look at that, I need to reflect it. See, C needs to be on top. So when I go ahead and reflect it, I go ahead and change colors. And so what did I do first here, though? I rotated it. Rotate clockwise 90 degrees. Now I'll go ahead and reflect. So I'm going to reflect across the x-axis this time. So B is going to go right here. There's B double prime. A will go back where it was before, double prime. C is going to go 3 spaces above, because it's 3 spaces below right now. And that's what I've got. So now I've got to go in the right direction. I just need to get it in the right spot. So let's write down what we did. We reflected across the x-axis. So now what I want to do is I want to move this so C is lined up. So it looks like I need to translate, looks like 2 left and a 1 up will get me there. So you see 2 left and 1 up. See 2 left, 1 up. 2 left, 1 up will get me right to where I need to be. So you can do it the exact opposite, and if you did that, if you went counterclockwise, you'd end up doing the exact opposite of rotate clockwise or counterclockwise or clockwise. You go counterclockwise 90 degrees. So you could always do that. But then when we go ahead and do the reflection, you'd reflect across the y-axis. And then you would have the same translation. 2 left and 1 up will get you in that spot. And again, that's a translation. So those are some of the problems that you'll end up seeing on the test eventually. So good luck.